Episode 70 Journalism and Watchdogging in the Hobby. Hey, podcast friends and family. It has been way too long since my last monologue episode. Today, as of recording, being March 6th, and the last one being episode 65 for the start of season 2, and that one was from February 4th. I'm also trying out not a new microphone, but a new volume setting. For those of you who would like to know this type of stuff, I use a Blue Yeti microphone, and not like the creators of the cup. And Stanley, as far as I know, doesn't have a microphone, but I am using the same microphone that I always use, and yet I am trying out a new volume level or setting. I guess to be more specific, a gain level for this episode. So please let me know, please let me know what you think. I think it sounds better, but your mileage may differ. I think this will also help me not have to lean into the microphone too much, and so maybe that'll help my back. So speaking about being back or my back, yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I've been sick, not like COVID or anything like that, but I had a sore throat, negative for strep. I won't get into all the what it's not and what it is, but I couldn't talk above a whisper. And so the recordings that I had with the Meet the Breaker series, the last 4 episodes, those are recorded like before I got sick, obviously, or maybe not obviously. But yeah, I mean, not saying that this is the reason for me being sick, although it likely is a contributing factor. But I did post about this on Instagram, and that is that I have a godson, and I'm really happy to have this little one in my life. Lives close enough where I help take care of him as well. So I made himself, my post on Instagram made himself a little Denny cards onesie. Other people like do all the T-shirts and stickers. I don't even have any of that stuff, but I figured what I wanted, the very first branded merchandise was a onesie for him. So I also made some extras and I sent them to some people I like in the hobby who also have infants. The size range being like months 6 to 12. So yeah, I am getting more sick and sick, and my hobby time thusly means that it gets more and more truncated. Um, you know it's bad. You know it's bad when you take multiple sick days from work and you can't even muster up the energy to play with cards. So for me, my cards, they're in my basement, and it was just too cold to go down there, right? I'm like fever, I'm sweating, and my cards are down there, and I just want to, I'm off work and I have no obligations, and yet I just want to go down there and I can't even go down there. And I had people DMing me for trades or to buy, and they're like, hey, can I get a picture of the card? Can I get a picture of the corner? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't send them to you. And I probably sounded like a scammer, right? Like, what do you mean you can't send me a picture of your card? And then there's a whole thing of, I don't know about you, but if I take some days off from my cards, I have like a relatively organized, but also it's like organized chaos. But I can't remember where certain cards are, right? And I'm just like, and this isn't like that Raphael Devers card that I sold on eBay and then I gave away. It's just I couldn't find the right pile, and I'm just like I can't do this. So, um, but it's all right. I also will admit I mailed in my social media posts and my reels, but that's okay. Like none of this is a job to me. I didn't feel obligated to have to do it. When you have your own social media presence, you are the CEO of your own content or whatever you want to do. I know for some people it's really important to keep up their brand. To me, it's not a big deal. I know someone I recently talked to a content creator about brands, and I'm like, I don't really ascribe to that whole thing. I mean, yes, it's important to some people, and for some people, it's how they get their breaking going and how they get their anything transactional side or business side of the hobby going. Sponsorships and all that. But for me, I'm just like, you know what? I have to continue to remind myself of what my wife continues to tell me, which is you're not in here to make money in the hobby. You're here to have fun. You can self fund the hobby. That's definitely what I want to do because I want to keep getting better cards and shed a lot of these cards that have no meaning to me. And so I am trying to get better in that. But for me, I think my motivations are different from others. So yeah, I mean, but I did post here and there because I do love the community on Instagram. And so, but yeah, I just kind of like it was like low effort, at least for me. I will admit that. So, but it is supposed to be fun. Same with this podcast. It's supposed to be fun. So my apologies for not being on a more, say, regular schedule or like at least with the monologue episode. I don't like to go a whole month without doing one of these. And just I feel like there's so much to catch up on. And I didn't want to call this episode another like, sick episode or sick 2.0 because, I already did a sick episode. I already went into my bag for that. So, you know, I thought it might be good to talk about something that I've been meaning to talk about. There's so many things in my head that I've been meaning to talk about. I've been meaning to talk about. So, for this one, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that recently happened in the hobby and my thought process as a content creator in various ways. Because the main one we think about when people say content creator is social media, right? Reels, YouTube videos. But there's also writing and podcasting. So, just anytime you're creating content. So, from a like say journalistic or watchdog perspective, because I don't purport to be either at all, but there are people who do that, and I would love to have people who do that on the podcast. I don't know how amenable they would be, although I do have some feelers out there. But it's so amazing because so much of what happens in this hobby. I mean, there is so much that happens in hobby. That's what I meant to say, and especially in the span of a month, right? I mean, a week. There's not a week that goes by without something. I mean, it doesn't always have to be big news, but there's news that happens. Whether it's like companies doing something or a breaker doing something bad or something positive. A big huge product hit, and all of that. So every week there's something. And I think that's why a lot of us can't ever leave like this, like the hobby to some people. I mean, I feel like it is to me. I feel like it's like Hotel California because, you can check it anytime you want, but you can never leave because much as the reason we come is for for the cardboard, right? The actual cards. I think the reason we stay are the people and the personalities and the interesting things that are so random or it's like this dopamine rush of news and drama like the unexpected. We don't know what's next, and I think for some people that's really attracting, much as they say they don't. And as a side note, I just want to say, much as there are some people who say they don't like drama, I mean, it's funny because in my experience talking to those folks, um, those are the very ones who are who are attracted the most to the drama. It's like, for me, it's like akin to, that, I forget where it's from, Shakespeare, or like, doth protest too much, or same with if you say oh if you say you're smart, if you're smart you don't have to tell people you're smart, right? It's like some people just go out of their way if you talk to them, and it's like whether it has to do with drama or not, if they immediately bring up something like, oh, I don't like drama, it's like, were we even talking about drama or just like happenings in the hobby? So I don't know, that's a whole nother thing I could talk about, another topic for maybe another episode or another day. um, so before we get to journalism and watchdogs in the hobby, let me just recap the last four episodes. Where have we been with this podcast? So far, I've done since the start of season two. I've done four podcast recordings with four breakers. When I first started, I did not intend this to be like a Meet the Breaker series. But I ended up talking to four breakers, all pretty different from each other. I hope you've noticed that. I didn't want to do just all four being, individual solos or all four being big breakers. Um, but a good mix. So first person I did was Valor Sports Cards. Thank you to him. He's a one man show who started off small by himself on Whatnot and is now on Fanatics Live. Is a veteran, lives in New York. He had the great fortune of pulling the Tom Brady Superfactor 1 of 1. And I think he's just a really upstanding good guy. Another upstanding good guy, Wisey, who used to be a breaker, but now buys packs for repacks for his company, Bleacher Breaks. I mean, in my opinion, just an absolute dream job. Just buying cards. Like, who doesn't love to just buy cards? Like, that is your job. That is your full time job. Just buying cards. Like, sign me up. So thank you to Kyle Weiss for coming on. And he just, I hope people gained a lot of information, or just kind of like an understanding of this dude who, I don't know, like I said before, he just rubbed me the wrong way. But I was like, why is he rubbing me the wrong way? Like, why am I so offended by this content? And then just coming around and just kind of like understanding, like, this is a real person and he's been through a lot of stuff. And so hope either informative or inspirational. And so the third person was Sarah, Mrs. Squirts. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. An independent breaker who also breaks with her husband, and they have like that going with like just the familial kind of uh, brand or whatever it is. And she and they juggle so much, and it was really interesting to find out about the vending machine thing and the V friends. And I know the whole Gary V thing can be very polarizing, but I just think it's really cool that they have so many things going on. And it's clear, I hope it's clear to you when you listen to that episode, that she just loves breaking for people, and just loves. And it's not about, the money is ancillary. It's not the end goal. It's about building community and having fun. And it's clear, at least it was to me, how much she loved breaking. And finally, thank you to Steven from Filth Bomb Breaks, the owner. One of the biggest breakers out there. Great social media presence. Pulled a massive Otani Ruth cut 1 of 1 auto. And then they more recently broke 100 cases, right? I mean, 100 cases of 2024 Topps Series 1 baseball. And he didn't just do it by himself. He has a team. He has a warehouse. We talked about how I bet it's almost like playing The Sims. You go from like your kitchen counter to uh, an office above a pizzeria to a warehouse to just where does it end? I mean, he's got such a massive operation. And having to rely on his team of breakers, and the vetting process and the onboarding, and like, I just found all that to be really interesting, because of course, if one of the breakers does something really bad, I mean, all it takes is one bad moment caught on camera to really sink everything. So you know through all of that, oh my goodness, I haven't done this in a while, where I'm just like, I might have to take a break soon. Just hope that you got a good glimpse of how it is to be a breaker, big or small, and maybe it inspires you to try it, or maybe it deters you. Maybe everything that you heard, if you did listen through all those through those episodes, is that, wow, that's not for me. I know that someone who has tried it and realized they may not be the best at it, that it's something that I didn't want to cultivate to try to become a better breaker. Could that change in the future? Who knows? But for now, I'm okay with like my small eBay sales and just doing that. But if you listen to those folks, at least you have another data point or two to mull it over. And through it all, the most important thing is to just understand that breakers are people too. I know it's such a crazy thing to say. So, okay, that's the recap. There's so many other breakers I could have done. Thank you to the 4 that I talked to. I think I will stop at 4. I did, just to unveil a little bit more behind the curtain, I did strongly consider squeezing in my old breaking company in here. Shout out to 941, but I think it'll have to wait for another time, just because I don't want to keep doing more breakers and breakers and breakers. Like, I think 4 was a good number. And I reach out to a bunch of folks, and it's not like the first 4, but I definitely want to prioritize the people who get back to me and are able to, we're able to set up the interviews. Again, it's almost like a trade or a sale. It's like, sometimes it's not about extracting to get the most amount of money. It's just, what's available, who's available, availability is the best ability, that type of stuff. So, um, speaking of trades, I guess, I mean, let's take a break here. Let me plug my favorite platform to make trades. My Card Post. Shout out to Mark Hill and My Card Post, and I'll be right back. Hey, card fam. You ever feel that sting like I have when you sell a card online only to see 12 to 14% of your hard earned money just vanish in seller fees? It's almost like a penalty for using online platforms. But here's the game changer: My Card Post. Instead of those frustrating fees on every sale, I just pay a small monthly subscription. So that way, I get to keep a lot more in my pocket. My Card Post is a place where collectors like us come together. It's about building new relationships in a trusted community where we can all safely buy, trade, and sell. BTS. And that's what I'm about: community building and safe transactions. If you want to join, it's free to set up an account if you only want to buy. But if you want to sell and trade as well, you can get started for as little as $9 a month. And I got to hook you up for listening. Use promo code Denny when you join, and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. And I'm already there. I have my shop. I'm buying, trading, and selling, and most importantly, connecting. So go to mycardpost.com and use my promo code Denny, Denny. Come check it out. I think you'll really like it. So see you there, where my card post every night is trade night. I think it would be great to have Mark on the podcast, Mark of My Card Post. I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. But when we get there, we'll get there. But again, thank you to Mark for the continued support. Um, you know, I won't even get into the whole podcast arrangement and all that, but it's interesting. I hope when I talk about it, it's interesting. But thank you for all the support, Mark. Been there since day one, and it's really cool. So, all right, journalism in the hobby. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's be real, okay? 99, I don't know, I made up that number. 99% of what you see on social media is not actual journalism, at least within the hobby. Uh, some of it is a regurgitation of information that was already reported, usually by a reputable source, and there really is like no value added whatsoever. And that reputable source is usually, say, like the company itself, whether it's like car production company, grading company, whatever it is, or it's an actual journalist. Case in point, which I am gonna, may come to no surprise to anyone. I am going to be talking about the most recent news about PSA acquiring SGC, and that news was broken by Darren Ravel, an actual journalist, an actual person, someone who has journalistic integrity, wouldn't steer the hobby wrong, make a joke, and then people go, oh my gosh, like, is this real? Like, when Darren Ravel says something, it's happening, it's real. There's no like, oh, actually, that's not happening, right? He doesn't dabble in rumors, false information. Like, if you want to say his brand, like his brand is, he breaks news, right? He's like the Shams or the Woj bombs dropping onto the hobby. And another person, just another example, I guess, would be someone like maybe Paul Lesko, the hobby lawyer, right? Brand, very serious. Um, I think that once you put yourself in that place, you are seen, you're perceived as someone who has high standards and doesn't steer people the wrong way. Um, Yet then, after that announcement, you get so many people reporting it out downstream, like secondhand, and they act like they're the lead anchor of Good Morning America or or like the Today Show, and they're just like a talking head with the same graphic behind them, like everyone else. And some even get like the nomenclature wrong. They say it's like a merger. This is not a merger, okay? PSA, SGC, they're not equals. They're both grading companies, but they have very different percentages of market share, and there is no combined vision, no combined strategy going forward with like shared board seats, like an actual merger would be on some executive board, right? No, that's not what happened here. This is the A in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. This is not a merger; it's an acquisition. I digress. But you have people who are like reporting it like serious news, and whether it is a talking head or it's just like a post, And then you have people who make memes or jokes about it. Okay, that's me. And I guess to defend it, I just wanted to provide a humorous take or twist on the matter. Okay, so for me, it was kind of like pointing out the very acquisition aspect of the situation. Like, the meme that I used or whatever is it was "There Will Be Blood." It's the scene with Daniel Day Lewis with the milkshake, and he's drinking up Paul Dano's milkshake up, and he's like, "I drink it up," and I won't do the whole thing, but I think if you've seen the movie or you've seen the scene, you get what I'm talking about. Of course, Daniel Day Lewis, his milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and it's really like it was like, I will consume you. I will take everything from you. And so but that was it. That's the joke, right? It was no reporting. It wasn't a talking head. But it's also because probably I was sick, and I will admit I got sick at a really bad time because I really did want to get behind the camera to say something, but then I was thinking, like, what would I say? Like, what value am I bringing? Like, it would just be me doing the same thing everyone else is doing anyway, and that's, I don't know. I don't like making that type of content. So I couldn't get behind the camera to make this content. Definitely had some thoughts, which brings me to the third kind of, content creation with journalism or reporting news, and that's the hot take guy. Okay, so this is the "let me tell you how it is" guy. The guy who, in my opinion, you really don't want to see at a bar. Okay, not because they're gonna fight you or pick a fight or bully you or threaten you, but because they're gonna bore you. Okay, and before I continue, I do want to caveat to say I truly do believe that we are all worthy of having an opinion and that all people should be respected and heard. I don't know. That's just, I don't know even know if I can say that's the way I was raised, but that's just in my DNA, and that's just the way I'm raising, like, say, my kids. And I think we're all worthy, okay, of having opinions. But that said, when you create open spaces like this, there are just some people who, you know, tend to dominate the space. What song is that? Is it Miley Cyrus? Like, came in like a wrecking ball. They take all the air out of the room, and maybe that's a kind way to put it. Maybe I'm not so kind way. It's like the bloviating know-it-all who just wants to talk, and doesn't want to hear others' opinions because they believe, not they believe, they know that they are correct. And I guess let me just say, I think I think I understand the absolute irony in saying this because I am currently speaking into a microphone to myself in a podcast form. But I don't know. I guess I have some self awareness. I don't know. Shrug emoji. So in this PSA acquiring SGC case, it's all the folks with predictions, or here's the real reason PSA bought SGC. It's like what's going on here? Because unless you have an inside source, which of course the hot take guy absolutely does not, because it's clear that they cannot keep anything discreet or in confidence. And what they say, generally has little value because the value is already there in the reporting, and then what's the additional value to that? So I think that's what I want to focus on, is providing value, because at the end of the day, like, why are we doing any of this? Is it to be informative, educational? Is it to be entertaining? Is it all of the above? Is it none of the above? But this is just, I guess, the way I feel currently in March 2024 of the state of the hobby and hobby content creation. Then, okay, so I talked about the journal, the people, taking aside the Darren Ravel, because that's like real value, right? I broke the news because he broke the news. That was great. Then you have the people who take it too seriously and become like a journalist, uh, talking head. Then you have the memers, or the people who make fun or humorous, like the King, Lameme James, of course, things like that. And then you have like the people who are like, it's not journalism, it's not reporting on the news. It's like, here's my take on the news. Then you have a subset, okay, and these are usually not content creators, okay. These are I, I had some time to think about this group. I really don't know what to call them other than the gripers or the complainers. They're not providing hot takes. They're just the people who are never happy. Well, whatever happens in life, whether it's in or out of the hobby, these folks, they don't create content, but they like to gripe about everything in the world and everything in the hobby. And I don't know if they're nihilistic in nature or what their end game is. Like, I really don't. And I'll be honest with you, I want to use this podcast to learn about people and what their motivations are and humanize people. But as of the time of this recording, I'll be honest with you, like, I don't really want to have these folks on my podcast because I don't think it would be either informative or entertaining. Because it seems that whatever happens in life, they just need to let others know that they are not happy. So in this case of PSA acquiring SGC, maybe they're a fanboy of SGC or of PSA. Or actually, I know in some cases they don't even grade at all, or they've never graded with SGC or PSA. So maybe their end game is to, pump up another grading company to and downgrade or diss PSA and SGC. I don't know. But to me, that's just wild because there are some people who have no actual, and sometimes they do have invested interest. They do have a vested interest, but they're just the people who doesn't matter what it is. You will never make them happy. They just have to find the negative in everything. And they have to not just find the negative in everything, but they have to let you know or let us know, let me know on social media that they're not happy and that, things got to change. Well, okay, things change. Well, no, that's not good enough. Or, okay, well, it changed even better. Nope, not good enough either. And it's like, what is the end game? I don't understand. And I don't think I want to know. Like, I don't think I want to know what their end game is. So, I think that was about 10 minutes of me talking. Let me take another break here, get a sip of water. No ad this time, I think. Just a break. I'll be right back. All right. So, this is the last leg of this podcast episode. Okay. So, for this part, I wanted to touch on another situation or example, and it has to do with like watchdog content and why I chose not to do a particular thing in this recent example. Okay, so to set the table, there was a situation where a whatnot breaker dipped a card. Okay, so the card in question is, I probably should have done more specific research on this, but 2023, 2024 Prism, Wemby, I think blue out of five. And again, when I don't know, I don't know if it was like shimmer or ice or cracked ice or, true blue. But I think the most recent comp for that was around $5,000, right? The actual card doesn't really matter. It's the value. It's that a card was dipped potentially. Okay, so same day this happened, I had people, send me the Twitter screenshot and of this happening and how terrible this breaker was, and I could have, like other content creators, immediately rushed to my phone to share this information out and essentially, I don't know, for the lack of a better phrase, join the mob with pitchforks and torches. And instead, I reached out to the breaker. I mean, it's part of the hobby lore or history, I guess. But its name I won't get exactly right. It's like differ 232 or 323. I don't know exactly what it is, but the Instagram handle itself had like different kicks, 323 or 232. I don't know, something like that. So I reached out by DM and I waited, and there was no response. Then I did some light digging around, and I found out something about a payment that didn't go through by the buyer. And the buyer was the one who put them on blast and was like, "I'm upset, and you won't send me the card. You're just giving me $100." And apparently there was a supposed IOU, which I don't even know how that works. That sounds ridiculous, especially for such a big spot in a break. I mean, this is where I'm editorializing. Like, I cannot believe that they- IOUs can't work in the hobby. Okay, they just can't. But apparently the payment didn't go through, and of course, if that Wemby doesn't break, doesn't a $5,000 Wemby doesn't come out of that break, how valid is that IOU, right? Like, is that person really going to pay and all this stuff? So anyway, that's just going down a whole nother rabbit hole. But you know, it's the coveted Wemby or Spurs spot. Like, there are people who buy into breaks just for that spot for the team or the player. And I've seen like breaks, or I'm not getting into these breaks, and maybe I may in the future, but there are these breaks where they break down the type of Wemby, right? It's like, no, it's this Wemby insert, it's this Wemby number, it's numbered out of whatever, and it's like, man, they are really to make it cheaper. Fragmenting, or like like dissecting that Wemby spot to be affordable to but of course that just means there's a more likelihood chance that you're not going to hit any card, anything at all. So anyway, I reach out to the buyer again, like I wait and there's no response. And I'm not here to say that I'm going to show this same level of restraint every single time, okay? Because there's some times when I just, whether it's my gut feeling, or I just, I'm gonna handle different situations differently. But in this particular one, as I'm waiting, I'm seeing other voices talk about this, and it is like really just all pitchforks and torches. This person's terrible. He's not responding. He's shutting down his social media. Let's tar and feather this breaker. This person is terrible. I mean, I'm not trying to defend the guy, but of course this person's going to shut down his socials because he's probably overwhelmed. He's probably getting threats. And, we know that there are certain cardinal sins in the hobby, and dipping a card is one of them. Okay. And it can destroy, we're talking about earlier about how one moment caught on camera can destroy your reputation as a breaker in an instant. This is like that. Just look at the retail kings with the downtown card, right? And that one was like pretty clear cut try. I mean, the guy was like, "No, you cannot see it," and all this stuff. And it wasn't just the "No, you cannot see the downtown." It was like he was threatening people who were calling him out, right? And it was all caught on camera. And there are just countless other examples of this. People who try to get away. The Brandon Cooks out of '99. It was before I came back into the hobby, but you know, shout out to the people who reminded me of that. So those folks, I mean, absolutely. Dipping a card, breaker, whether you're breaker or not, if you're doing something shady, if you're not just sending out cards, or you're not, doing, if you're doing something and it has to do with money, like people are going to get really angry, right? So they should be lambasted. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be, but I do also feel like there's just no more waiting around and trying to get someone's side of the story, whether it is spin or actually what happened or not. But there is just no more waiting. It's just it's like our current news cycle and social media consumption in general. Like there's just so much information and news out there that we have to consume quickly, so that when it's time to consume the next piece of content, or not content but news or drama or whatever you want to call it, it's we're ready because we've consumed the other thing and now it's time. So it's like faster, 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 and then pump it out there quicker, quicker, quicker. Like we want the information. And it's like there is no, there's no nuance, there's no waiting. It's just we have to consume. And it's not just the hobby, it's just how, I guess, the current state of things are with social media. And so, in both examples of PSA acquiring SGC and this breaker dipping this $5,000 Wemby card, there is a rush to want to be first. Not necessarily correct or right, but just first. Because, I mean, there's so many reasons, but, the one I'm positing here and bringing up is that social media creates this sense of urgency and immediacy that if I don't report it first, then someone else will, and I will be late. I'll be late to the game, and I'm just copying other people's content. But if I go first, then people are copying me. But it's all the same information. It's not copying. It's just whether, how soon do you not break the news, but you share that information out to your followers or to your base or your community or your supporters. And you know, if that's the game, I don't know. There's this prevailing thought by some people, who I guess I'll just call a, there's a quote, there's a thought, and this comes from a very thought provoking musician, war poet, Ice T, and that is, don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay, so that's just the game. Quick, quick, quick. And the thing is, I get that. as someone who makes content in various platforms, and podcast is so different because it's so infrequent. I'm not doing this daily. I don't want to do it daily. I don't even do it weekly. Weekly I might want to, but there's no I'm not reporting on timely things in a timely manner. Social media different. Instagram, it's like, yeah, I could make it quicker, but in this instance with the Wemby thing, I just, my gut told me not to, or just to don't do it. And I don't blame, or I'm not disappointed in anyone who did. It's just that is how it is, though. It's like there is no getting the sides of a story. It's just, this is what happened, and we gotta go after that person. And so I think that's the unfortunate part. As someone who does make this content, I will very much admit, uh, I feel the sense of urgency, not by anyone or anything in particular, but internally. As someone, if I make a meme and I get it out there, it sounds crazy, but I would much rather have someone say that it's a lame meme as opposed to someone say that I copied someone else's meme. So it's almost like a rush to do it as an quote unquote original thought, and insert the whole Garden State. There is no such thing as original thought. But I just get the sense of I would rather put out something that doesn't land with people than have someone say, "Oh my goodness, you copied that other creator and you are like such a copycat." I would like to think that I put enough content out there that that doesn't happen. I don't think, no one's ever called me out on that because I haven't done that. I don't copy people. I actually go the opposite. I try not to do things other people do because it's just a different perspective. But when it kind of going back to that whole don't hate the player, hate the game, and like, getting there first, Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. uh, the problem with that mentality is when it comes to getting people's reputations involved, and there is this mob mentality, I do think it's a good thing to just take a moment to step back. But again, the game, the social media game, doesn't really allow for things to be digested. It's like consume quickly, you know, because it's time to eat again, consume it real soon. So, I mean, yes, as a creator, if you're not first to market, you won't get as many clicks. You may not get as many likes, but I don't know. I think I'm just of the opinion, if you're about to lambast someone online and get your community of supporters or followers to get their pitchforks and get their torches, I think it's good to make sure that your ducks are all in a row. So, having said that, because I did say this is the last leg, I think, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it almost makes me want to talk to some of the people who are journalists or watchdogs. I don't know if I'm going to get Darren Ravel. I don't know if I'm going to get, some of the watchdogs, because I will say some people, I have recently been accused of being positive and that supposedly I'm part of the positivity crew. I mean, I generally disagree with this whole hobby positivity crew versus a negative positivity, not negative positivity, hobby negativity crew. Um, it's very likely I get more no's than yeses. Maybe I go a completely different route for the next episodes. I don't know because I'm only now recently feeling better. I'm ready to get some more interesting guests on the pod. Not more interesting, just as equally as before. Just great interviews, or recordings or chats with people in the hobby. In general, I just want to bring a different perspective on all of this. I think some of the nicest things people say is, I don't, you're very different from what's out there. And I appreciate that because I'm not trying to be like other people. And I am trying to carve a different path just so, I just want to make content that I like to listen to, because I like making this type of content. So, who knows? I don't know what episodes 71 to 75, especially anything after that. I have no clue how any of this looks. I'm recording this. I am going to digest it. I'm going to reach out to people. I'll see where the wind takes me. I think that's the best way to do it because you can have the best plan in the world, but I think it's Mike Tyson who said, if everyone has a plan until they get in the ring, and then and then they get punched in the face. So I think it's important to have a plan, structure. This podcast has this very structured process of like I talk to these groups of people, but maybe people don't like that, like, and uh, by the third, fourth interview, it's not that I get bored or I don't want to, because it's like talking to friends, but I do kind of get a sense in the back of my mind, like, is this too much? Like, or even, is this too much for 4 episodes in a row, for instance? So I'm gonna think it all out and just kind of sharing my thought process because um, I don't know. I feel like some content creators, podcasters make it seem like they have everything down to a T and it's perfect and they have a plan, they have a strategy, they have their brand, they have everything like just perfect. And I don't know, maybe they're just doing a good job of like hiding and maybe they're doing a really good job of masking how stressful or random or it can be. So again, feeling much better, got my lungs underneath me. I'm really excited to get back to talking to folks and just getting you informative, entertaining content, podcast content. I don't know. So anyway, let me just end this. Thank you for listening, for getting all the way through this episode. Hope you have a great day today in and out of the hobby. Still haven't figured out a great outro, but this is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. I'm rooting for you. Reach out to me, Instagram at Denny_cards. Don't reach out to me by threads. I won't watch it or at least listen to it. But be well. And I'm glad to have you back on board as well. All right. Take care.